Hi guys, Mike from We Build Stuff. Today we're going to start on building a full-size arcade cabinet. I built this with mainly 3 tools. I used a circular saw, a drill, or different types of drills, and a jigsaw. You can do this entire thing with just these 3 tools, or you can do a couple extra ones a little bit quicker if you got a table saw. Enjoy.
Basically, the first thing I did was I had to go shopping and buy stuff. Hardware like T-nuts, bolts, washers, lock nuts, etc. I think I ended up doing this with about 2.5 sheets of 3/4 inch MDF. Now, I'm just showing you a bunch of different tools that I've used, or that I'd like to window shop for, and you don't need to buy all this stuff. I bought a lot of my own personal tools for sale on garage sales, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist if you still use that. You're going to see a lot of these tools used throughout the video, and really you got to make your own choices of what you're going to purchase or rent or borrow depending on your situation. A lot of these tools I already had in my general toolbox because I've been collecting tools probably since I was 12. It's a bit of a problem, but you can always use more. I started by making some sketches on paper and kind of figuring out my rough size. A lot of this was based on, will it be able to fit through a doorway? And that was about it. I wanted it as big as I could, but could still fit through a doorway. This first thing you're seeing me doing is kind of optional. I started making a template for this so that if I wanted to build the exact same project again, I could just trace it out. I already had some 1/2 inch MDF left over from some previous projects, so I used that. And this stuff worked out to maybe $20 worth of material when it was done. Now, what tools do you see me using? I'm using a circular saw. You'll see me use a jigsaw in a bit. But my whole goal with this specific project was to try to build something without the use of a table saw, bandsaw, and some of the larger tools. What could I also replicate in my backyard or in my kitchen if my wife wasn't home? If you go slow enough, you can make extremely straight cuts with a jigsaw with minimal filing and sanding after. So while I do have plans available that I made in AutoCAD and the stuff on paper, things change as you build. I always try to use those initial plans as guidelines for how to get started. I kept simple measurements, things like 3/4, basic fractions, and I probably mixed up metric and centimeters in there at some point because that's just the way my brain thinks. But really, you need to design based on your specific need. I added basically every line so I could plan out where are all my blocks going to go, what is every single piece going to be, and I can get it extremely close to its final size by taking my time and drawing it with a nice sharp pencil. Not everybody's going to like this design, and that's okay. Build it the way that you want to build it. I've gone and shaded in the areas where I plan on putting my blocking. The blocking is going to be the parts that support all my big pieces. It also helps that I filmed this so that if I decide to build one again, I can just go back and watch my own video. Now, this is still just my template. I haven't even started my actual pieces for the cabinet yet, but I want to make it as nice as I can. I think I still have this big piece of wood somewhere in the back of my shed. Now, I really tried to take my time to make my template as nice as I could. I'm going to be basically either tracing this, or in my case, I'm going to attach a trim bit to my router, clamp it to a piece of MDF, and essentially just cut it out like that without having to think too hard, other than, don't break the tools. Now, in my head, to make my life easier, I was going to cut out every single one of those shaded pieces, make it exactly you know, 3/4 of an inch wide, route it out, make it perfect, so that I could just drop a router bit down into there and add that easily onto my pieces. Well, that didn't work out. I'm still going to keep it in the video because I thought it was a great idea. It'd make it so much easier for tracing. But I wasn't able to get it as exact as I wanted to.
So today I made a full-size template for a stand-up arcade. The spots that you see that are cut out are so that I can use a router bit, drop it down, and essentially trace it onto a piece below. So this is just a template. I'll hopefully be able to use this over and over and over again. While I still have some sanding to do, these are roughly 3/4 of an inch wide. This is for transferring onto a 3/4 inch thick piece of MDF. And these sections that are cut out are going to be the support blocks for all the pieces that go together. This is going to increase the speed that I'm able to build these with, and hopefully the accuracy, because they will all be the same. Less guesswork.
Okay, so even though I didn't actually end up making it perfect, I sure tried. So what you see me here doing is trying to plan out a giant piece of material and not use a table saw to rip it down. This is to show that you don't need all these big fancy tools. I'm going to be doing this with a circular saw and a saw guide. If you don't have a saw guide, you can basically use a 2x4, some kind of straight edge, to run the edge of your circular saw against. I'm going to do just a real rough cut because I know I'm not actually keeping this specific edge, but I am keeping my two outside parts as reference angles. That being said, I think I cut pretty straight. So I can lay my piece on top. I'm going to clamp it down real tight, and I'm going to use a trim bit. Now, it probably would have been better if I had actually gone and trimmed a little bit with the jigsaw first. That would have meant less wear on the actual trim bit itself. It's a very tiny bit that I was using to hog through some very big material. Now, tracing out my supports, it allowed me to get it close. I still had to clean these lines up properly with a ruler. They weren't as exact as I wanted it to be, but they did work out, as you can see by the final product. So there's a little bearing there just underneath the red part. That's going to run along my template and allow me to, essentially trace it. I really should have trimmed this a little bit smaller. You can hear the bit really struggling. A big downside to using MDF is that powder you see coming off. That stuff is very bad for your lungs. I'm wearing a mask, maybe 3, I can't remember. And probably a good set of ventilation would have helped. However, this area of the room, there was no ventilation. There was no fancy sucky machines to get all that off. And it really sucked having to vacuum out that carpet later. Now, if you don't have a router to do something like this, that's okay. Use a jigsaw and just go really, really slow. You can basically put your two pieces together so you cut them out the exact same at the same time, and then just sand them smooth. You know what I would really like to have? More clamps. You can never have enough clamps.
So I just finished cutting these out. These outer shapes were done only with a router. and a trim bit. This thing struggled a little bit as we were trying to hog a lot of material out of that 3/4 inch MDF. There's only a couple little things I'm going to have to fill from when it slipped. I'm very happy with this so far. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is transferring all my lines, my marks from my template onto here. I'll pretty much just measure, transfer on, measure, and transfer on. I'm not going to be relying on these that I traced from here, just in case. They may be off by even a 1/16 of an inch. Is not going to make it the way I want it to. The 3/4, it's a lot heavier than the 1/2 inch, so this is going to be a nice heavy duty build. This is how I know that tracing from my template was not quite as accurate. That's off by at least a 1/16 of an inch or a millimeter, millimeter and a half. So I'm just going to redraw those all, that way I know it's perfect for when I attach my support blocks. So I've transferred all my lines onto this first piece. I have made a few changes from my original template, and I'll just reflect those when I draw them onto my second one. Really, the most important thing is that they are all the same, so everything is even. Nothing's going to go on crooked. Let's go.
Since this thing is going to be so heavy, I need some way to move it around easily. One of my local stores at the time, called Casterland, has been really good to me in the past and hooked me up with some nice set of wheels for this thing. I was originally going to have just adjustable feet at the front, but I ended up switching to 4 casters instead of just 2 casters and 2 feet. If I was doing large batches of these kind of projects, I'd have a template that I could just put on and trace, or, throw this onto a laser or something. However, I really enjoy doing this part of the process. I don't really play these cabinets that much. I actually just enjoy building them. And I just like to take my time, make things precise. I don't know, is that an OCD thing? Not sure. As I go, I try to make notes on the material or in my diary so that I don't have to remember what everything is meant to be. If I label it, it takes the guesswork out of everything. This next part right here is me just planning out where the screen is going to go and the thin piece of clear plastic that is going to sit in front of it and the MDF that's going to be holding everything together. I estimated the size, even though I hadn't bought the plastic yet, and I think I made it just a millimeter or 2 larger, and it fit perfectly.
Almost done laying out all the lines needed for the arcade. What you can see here is a small skinny piece. That's going to be the plastic or plexiglass or whatever I choose. It's going to go in front of the monitor. There's going to be another piece of MDF here with the monitor behind it. This line is representing the blocks. This is representing a big thick piece of plastic. Below here, I have a control panel, and then below that, there's going to be another block. This block is going to have a notch cut out in order to hold the piece of plexiglass or plastic or whatever it is I really have kicking around. I haven't chosen the exact material for that yet. Should be wicked. So in order to move this cabinet when it's all done, it's going to be probably over 200 pounds. I went and picked up some casters. So 2 for the back, and the front will have some adjustable feet. I'm going to locate them here. That's about 4.5 centimeters or 1 3/4 inches from the bottom. This will give it another 3/4, or in this case, I guess you'd call it about 2.5 inches travel here. The front will have adjustable feet, so you can level it depending on the room. I'm not sure if I'm going to be using these plugs or if I'm going to be using a T-nut sandwiched in between here yet. I'm going to see as we go throughout the build. Thinking we're doing 4 wheels for easy transport.